Or if you want to send me a text message, send it coming through on 055-383-1329, and I would read them for you. My panelists or my guests are already seated, and you would meet them. But before that, I want to go for a quick breather. When I come back, you get to meet them. And today, we are discussing Article 21(1)(a) of the 1992 Constitution. If you don't know it, don't worry. When I come back from the break, I would read it to you, and then the discussion starts. Stay tuned. This is Youth Empowerment Television 2 with me, Abna. And like I said before I went on the breather, this afternoon we are discussing Article 21(1)(a) of the 1992 Constitution. I also realized that this same article or the statute or whatever that is there at Article 21 is also at Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it seems as if this right or this freedom is of high importance or is very relevant for you and I. And I'll be doing this discussion with two gentlemen. I have in the studio Solomon Adongo. He's a law student from King's University College. And then Junior Kwabna, he's also a law student. So this afternoon, we are talking about your freedom of speech and expression and its limitations. Gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Junior, when I was introducing you, you were nodding as to something.
Oh, I'm okay.
Okay, that's right.
You did introduce me as a law student.
Okay.
Which currently, I think I'm done with my LLB.
Apologies.
Yeah.
My apologies. My apologies, please.
None of us standing.
You are no longer a learning colleague. You are now a learned colleague.
No, I'm not even learning.
Okay, that's fine. So I would love to start with Adongo, but let me jump since I've started with you, Kobe, already. When we say freedom of speech, what even constitutes freedom of speech?
All right. When we talk about freedom of speech, I think it's very good we get to decouple both words. What even is freedom? Something that many people would overlook very often because the word itself sounds obvious. Everyday language, we hear freedom, freedom, but then have we really come to terms to understand what really freedom is? So when we talk about freedom in a stricter sense, that means free without restrictions. And without any impediment, without any limitation. That is the word itself, freedom.
Okay.
And so when we refer it with regard to the very aspect we want to discuss today, freedom of speech. Speech in itself, let's not take it to mean oral or trances. Okay. But then it can also go as far as things we put down, any form of communication. Yes, any form of communication in this sense can be classified or categorized as speech. So to put the two together, communicating freely without restriction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily mean to alter words or to say something. It could be what you have put on your internet, what
Yes.
you've put out there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, what is your take? When we say freedom of speech, what do we even mean by that?
Well, first of all, let me say a very good afternoon to your listeners and then your followers. This is my first time the year joining you, and I would say congrats to you, and then the producers of the program. I mean, it's reaching out to people and giving some hope to the youth. So back to your question.
Okay.
Freedom of speech. Indeed, look at freedom. What is freedom? Something that you are able to express without apprehension. Something that you do without fear. Something that you can express, okay, without the feeling of intimidation or anxiety. Okay, that's what I would term as freedom.
Okay.
And then speech basically is what he put it. It's any form of communication, either in oral writing, in what do you call it, written. I mean, in any form that you communicate your ideas.
Once you are relaying an information out there, that is...
Exactly, it's a form of speech.
Okay.
All of that constitutes speech. And so putting the two together, I believe you will be getting there where we'll discuss that. But when you put the two together, I believe our constitution is quite clear on what will constitute speech. And I take note of the keen attention of the language of the Constitution.
Okay.
The Constitution is careful enough not to make vexatious in terms of positions on speech. Okay, it talks about responsible speech. It talks about, you know, speeches that do not pose any form of threat to national security or our moral settings and all of that.
We'll get there in the course of our discussion. But if...
One other thing I want to add when we talk about speech, pictorial display, things like things we put up, images can also be classified as speech in this regard.
Okay, so if I position myself in a certain way, if I make certain gestures, can I also put that under speech? I'm not saying anything, but I'm reacting to certain things in a different way. Can I put that under speech? Because it's relaying an information.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
All right. When you take the very provision that is 21A, talks about speech, talks about expression. So that will fall under the broader umbrella expression.
Okay.
So those expression itself can be your demeanor, how you call it, gestures, maybe would qualify as expressions in that regard. Yeah.
So my next question then would be, who then is eligible to enjoy this freedom of speech? Must I be in a certain age group? Must I have certain qualifications to be able to enjoy this freedom of speech? Kobe, I'll still start with you. I'll come back to you. So
There's entitlement that everyone found within the country is entitled to.
Okay.
A privilege to say that we are all entitled to. There are certain rights which we can classify or qualified. For instance, we talk about right to vote, which is restricted to certain category of people. You must be a Ghanaian, and then you must, even with that, there is further qualification. You must be of a certain age. But when we talk about this fundamental right, we call them inherent right.
Okay.
And by virtue of we being human, by virtue of we being within the territory of Ghana, we are entitled to it. So irrespective of your nationality, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your color, origin, you are entitled to freedom of speech.
Oh, okay. So look, do you agree with him? Are you in bed with what Junior is saying?
Yes, of course. I do agree. So it's important that we place the question. I guess your question was whether, as long as you're a Ghanaian, you are entitled to free speech. Now, yes, like he said, free speech is an inherent right that every human being is entitled to. Indeed,
Okay.
One of the rationales for I even thought that we should have some historical background to this whole thing. It will give us a broader picture
understanding
of this whole thing. And so you can look at it way back as far as somewhere in 1935. Okay. I guess it was the first time we're going to have it was I radio station or something like that.
That was Radio I. That's
Radio I, right? I think the then governor Arnold or so, he came up with it, but it didn't really survive.
Okay, you mean the pre-colonial era?
Good.
Radio I has to
It
go
started
to
from then.
1999.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
And then I jumped from there, and then you realize that there was this Daily Graphic. Okay, you know, Daily Graphic initially was owned and managed by the Daily Mirror Group. Somewhere in 1962, then Nkrumah bought it, okay, for the state. And then the group says that they couldn't work under Nkrumah, so they handed it over to Nkrumah and said the government should manage it. But then we all know the period between 1962 up to 1964, some of the things that happened within that period, where suppression of speech, suppression of expression, you know, political opposition and all of that was under siege. And so you look at it, and one of the reasons you would realize that Nkrumah's regime, even though sacrosanct at the time, had to suffer some form of backlashes and all of that, was because the people were left behind. The government's business. The people, indeed, he was doing wonderful things, but the question is, did the people understand, were the people involved in the business of the government at the time? So you realize the disconnect between what the people felt and what the government was doing created a vacuum for whatever happened to happen. Now, coming down to the subsequent constitution, you realize that at every point after that time, there was that conspicuous attempt to insert that clause there to make it free for everyone to express himself. But it all failed because of the military, you know, regimes that interrupted those times. Down to the 1992 constitution, where under, chapter 5, you have the article 25 under chapter, 21 plus 1A, where it specifically talks about the freedom of expression, and it captures the media as part of it. Indeed, you cannot look at freedom of speech or free speech without looking at the media freedom. Are you getting? Because the individual freedom right now is subsumed in the media freedom. Are you getting? Because
so Solomon, just give me a minute to read the article 21(1)(a) to my viewers. It says, all persons shall have the right to A, freedom of speech and expression, which shall include freedom of the press and other media. So Solomon, you can continue from there. I just wanted my viewers to know that once you are Ghanaian, it says all persons. The one says all persons. So it cuts across, whether you are 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, however old you are, doesn't matter. So far as you're Ghanaian, you have the right to freedom of speech and expression, and includes freedom of the press and other media. So Solomon, continue from there.
Yes, good. But sometimes when I listen to the conversation, especially from your preliminary interpretation of the very article that you read, where we talk about the fact that so long as you're a Ghanaian, you're entitled to it. I don't know, if you go further, and I've already established that this freedom of speech then has been subsumed in the media freedom. Okay, so let's even restrict ourselves within the media discussion and see something. Realize that much of the constitution emphasizes and entrenches the freedom of the media. Same constitution puts up structures to regulate them.
Yeah, we would come to the regulation, because that's why I asked you, though the constitution is saying all persons, I asked who is eligible to freedom of speech?
Per the constitution. For instance, in SHS schools, you cannot run political commentaries in SHS schools. So much as everyone is entitled to certain things, and that's why I said again that the constitution forbids people from having to talk in a way that prejudices or jeopardizes the security, and the moral settings of our society. So much as everyone is entitled to something, in politics, let's say in SHS, like I said, you cannot run certain commentaries, especially political commentaries. You cannot be making tribal bigotry statements. You cannot be running, let's say, ethnocentric comments on certain. And as I sit here, there are certain comments that I cannot render, even though I do have the right to exercise them. I'm sure you get what
I get where you're coming from.
So exactly what I'm saying. So let's not take it that everyone at all is entitled to the freedom of speech. Yes, you may be entitled to it, but to an extent.
So
yes.
Then I would. My next question would be: Is this provision or is this right? Is it absolute? That is the next question I would want to know, because if I'm entitled to freedom of speech and I cannot say certain things, what can I not even say, and why can't I even say those things?
We cannot talk of absolute right, especially when some of those freedoms and rights have competing interests.
Okay.
Yeah. I have freedom of right,
Speech.
expression or speech, same as you do. But in the same vein, you have freedom to be protected in terms of your person, your reputation, what have you. Yes. And the interests of the country also come to play. When you take Article 12.2, yeah, it gives a proviso for the enjoyment of the fundamental rights and freedom that have been outlined under Chapter 5. And it talks about instances whereby legitimate constraint can be laid against the enjoyment of some of these rights, which includes freedom of speech. And some of those have to do with the public interest, public security, public order, public morality, and even the right and freedom of other persons. And when you look at subsection 4, that's clause 4, clause 4, paragraph E of Article 21, it also emphasizes that when we are putting in place some of those limitations or constraints, it must be one that will echo the letter and spirit of the Constitution. So we must not just impose restrictions because we think it is necessary, but we must also be very careful they do not undermine the spirit of the Constitution. So yes, we can talk of absolute rights when we have competing interests. The same way I have freedom to express whatever I want to, I must also respect your right to personal dignity, your right to personal reputation, what have you. So I must not say things that will injure your person. I must not say things that will be rebellious to the state. I must not harbor hatred for people through my speech. So that should be the guiding principles when we are enjoying some of this right.
So then let me ask Solo, what can I not say as a Ghanaian citizen? What are there even structures in the Constitution that says, oh, if you say this particular thing or if you say this at this place, you would be arrested, and these are the rules or these are the punishments that will be meted out to you? Are there structures like that in our Constitution?
What we right from the outset, I'm sure, I mean, as students of the law, we know that...
Please, I don't know. So educate me. I have no idea. I have no, my friends and we have no idea. We don't even understand what you're saying.
Okay. So we are aware of this law called tort law. Right? Okay. So I think he mentioned some parts of that. You asked, your initial question was whether there's an absolute right to enjoy that provision of the Constitution. Yeah. It's important that we understand that every single one of the rights that have been entrenched in the Constitution for us are accompanied by responsibilities and discernment. Every one of them. For instance, I have the right to education, right? Yeah. But the right to education certainly would come with some responsibilities, right? It comes with. The fact that I have the right to education doesn't mean that when I go to school and then rules are there and provisions are there for me to meet those provisions, I will say because I have the right, I will not do anything. I just show up in school and that's it. That's not it. Now, coming back specifically to this, you are aware of crimes like character assassination.
I am not aware. You are educating me. My viewers and I, we are not aware. So you are educating us. Yeah.
You
so
are
let's
aware
go.
of crimes like defamation, right? So where you basically make certain malicious statements about a person's personality.
But when you say malicious, what do you mean? Break it down for my viewers and I, because we are not in law school with you. So,
so what I mean is that where you are deliberately, creating falsehoods in order that you impinge negatively a person's personality. You get it? You want to have negative impact on my integrity or personality with falsehood.
Okay.
You get it?
Okay.
That is what I mean by malicious, impingement on my personality. And so it is not an absolute right that you have. That is the point that we make.
Okay.
It's not an absolute right. Indeed, you have the right to exercise your speech. And you ask a question about what kind of speech can I make and what can I not make. I earlier on mentioned some of them. You cannot sit on any platform at all and then threaten people. Okay, you can't make tribal, bigotry statements. You cannot make divisive statements. You cannot make, tribalistic statements or ethnocentric statements. Those ones, I believe, the moment they come up, the law will come after you. You get it? So you have to exercise discretion and some sound judgment at every point in time when you are exercising that right.
Okay, so if I'm hearing my producer right, somebody made a comment on television and he was grabbed to be questioned. So let's go and watch that video. When we come back, I would ask my panelists, where can I make certain statements and where can I not make certain statements? Because in 2012, some people were caught or arrested for contempt of court. I don't understand. Why must I say something in court and then you... Let's go and watch the video and come.
Only in 4 years. No. I'm telling you, you're not going to finish in 4 years. Listen, my point is that Naganana Robert Johnny only in 4 years. No. I'm telling you, you're not going to finish in 4 years. Listen, my point is that you see UTV. Just shut up. That's none of your business. No, you say I'm telling you. Don't put words in my mouth.
You just said it.
Don't put words in my mouth.
You just said the president cannot finish his 4 years. Is that right?
Naganana Robert Johnny only in 4 years. No. I'm telling you, you're not going to finish in 4 years. Listen, my point is that UTV. Just shut up. That's none of your business. Naganana Robert Johnny only in 4 years. No. I'm telling you, you're not going to finish in 4 years. Listen, my point is that UTV. Just shut up. That's none of your business. No, you say I'm telling you. Don't put words in my mouth.
You just said it.
Don't put words in my mouth.
You just said the president cannot finish his 4 years. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, welcome back from that short break or video interlude. So now let me ask my panelists, what can I say and what can I not say and at where? Because from what we just watched, Bulldog sat on TV to talk about the president not finishing his term if he does not pay the people, the customers of Men's Good, and information we got was that he was taken in to be questioned by the BNI. So, I mean, he didn't insult the president. He didn't say why was he taken in to be questioned, Junior?
All right. With regard to what we can say and what we cannot say, I would say there is no how they call it, fast rule about it, or a watertight rule that you can mention. Okay, we can outline. You can say this, you can say that. But then, as I have said earlier on, we have competing competing interests to be protected, and we have laws that regulate our conduct to ensure that we do not fall or we do not act outside our boundary. For instance, when you take a walk through our criminal act, that's the Criminal Offences Act, 1960, you look at section 74 and 75. 74 precisely talks about threat of harm. 75 talks about threat of death. And threat of harm basically is making statement that put another in a position to fear for his life, that is threat of death, and to fear for his death. So, you know, very often we say, the lawyers will tell you that crime have two elements. You need a guilty mind to meet an actual execution of an act to qualify as a crime. But then the law also make some qualification to this rule, what we call the incomplete offenses. Sometimes you don't need a guilty mind to coincide with an actual act. And there are offenses that will only take place by virtue of you having said that. And so the only thing that needs to be done is to impute your intention. What is the intention for saying that? And so we in this case we have to read meaning to what does it really mean if the president is not supposed or would not complete his fourth term. Let's look at the law. What are the instances that a president...
Because he did not state clearly that the president would die before January 2022. He never made such statements.
Sometimes it doesn't need to be expressly made, but then you can impute from the statement. So let's go. What are some of the instances that a certain president will not be able to complete his term?
When he's ill, when he's...
So ill health, incapacitated, or death. So what does it mean the president will not be able to complete his term? Is he going to be incapacitated? And what is going to trigger that? So in saying that, or is he going to be killed? Or is he going to die? What is going to trigger that? So sometimes we need to, how to call it, interrogate further. Not just, it shouldn't end by what he has said, but then we need to, how to call it, make references to our provision. So as I have mentioned, threat of harm. Does he intend? He does not even have to, how to call it, intent, or his motive is really not important in the face of the law. The law does not concern itself with motive. And what he intends must not be subjective as well. It must be objectively ascertained. And what will a reasonable person think? And also we must be very careful that the wording of section 74 and 5 are very, very clear. They do not even impose responsibility for the Lord to ascertain whether he has the capacity or what it takes to execute his threat. But the mere fact that a threat has been made and an intention to commit threat has been imputed is enough. And how can we, arrive at some of those things? It can only be ascertained, or we can only get to the bottom of this if investigation is allowed to be carried on. So yes, he has been carried on by the NIB, but then it doesn't mean he has been cited for any offense. We are yet to get information whether he's going to be arraigned before a competent court, and whether on the charges, the specific charges which is going to be arraigned. So whatever that has been in the public domain is speculative. But I think that the arrest was to pave way for investigation to see the further action that has to be taken in that regard. So that is it. By and large, we must be very careful, be guided. We must know that individuals have, how they call it, interests that need to be protected by law, same as we also have our freedom to express freely whatever we want to say. So we must make sure that we fine-tune this so that by expressing our freedom, we do not hurt other people.
Yeah. Solomon, in his submission, made one very important point that I'm curious about. He said, if somebody makes utterances or certain speeches that seek to threaten the state, the security of the state, what do you mean by that?
So this is it. At every point in time, the Constitution actually is not interested in individual interest.
Okay.
It's interested in the general interest. Now, don't take that statement to mean that the Constitution would not take care of an individual. What it means is that at every
I was
point
definitely going to ask you.
Yes. So at every point in time when there's an issue under contention, the Constitution would want to concern itself with the group interest, the entire interest of the nation, as opposed to an individual's interest. Are you getting the point I'm coming from? So now, you may have a right in a certain way. For instance, when COVID-19 set in, realize that everybody has a right under the same chapter 5. You have the right to freedom of movement and all of that. But when it became critical and, you know, quite imperative that restrictions are imposed on us, remember the president ordered all of us to remain in our rooms.
In the house, yes.
And then could an individual say that because I have the right, I want to get out there and do what I want? No. At that point, you'll be arrested and prosecuted in line or in accordance with the provision. And you cannot go and defend yourself based on that provision that has been given to you, because the general interest of the Ghanaian populace will be taken into consideration, not your individual interest, because your going out there was going to pose a threat to other people. You get the point I'm making. But you're coming to your question about what can be said at what platform and what cannot be said.
I was going to follow up the security question or the security issue with a question that what constitutes something, or what constitutes an issue that would say, oh, this is threatening the state security? Because if I say Ghana is in war, I don't think it constitutes threatening the state security. So what can you give me an example of something that constitutes that?
Yes. So the at every point in time, like he said, the law will concern itself with objectively ascertaining the real intent of the issue at play.
Okay.
You get it? I mean, we've gone past the subjective era. But the question you asked, and you gave a classical instance about the fact that if I say Ghana is in war, that statement is a statement that would have to go through a factual ascertainment.
So I can be fined or I can be arrested for that.
If it's ascertained that the statement you are making, is it a statement of fact? At the time you were making, if Ghana is in war and you are stating a statement of fact that Ghana is in war, nobody should come after you for stating a fact that Ghana is in war. Are you getting it? But if Ghana is not in war and you are saying that Ghana is in war, then leaves the question of finding out what have you seen that makes you think that Ghana is in war. And the fact, and indeed comes back to Bulldog's statement. Bulldog was picked up not to be prosecuted ab initio, but to follow up to find out. He says he's threatening that the president will not end his tenure. What exactly did he mean? In what position was he standing, and what has he seen? Or is there something that he's planning or he's privy to that can indeed jeopardize the success of the president? You get it? So that is the question that will have to be answered. In terms of what constitutes a crime, in terms of what constitutes an unacceptable utterance, if I should use that
put it
word.
that way.
Good. The law is quite clear. However, it is still ambiguous when it comes to this. When it comes to this subject, because realize that the Constitution has not defined what an acceptable statement is and what an unacceptable statement is. So that is where the issue about sound judgment comes to play. That is where the discretion comes to play. That is where, as an individual, at every point in time when you are exercising that right, you need to ask yourself that the right that you are exercising, are you exercising it in a way that jeopardizes another person's interest? Indeed, there's a provision under the same...
Let me read some few messages before you come to the provision.
But can I correct this?
Okay.
Someone is making a point about the fact that in my submission, I said that defamation is a crime.
Okay. Let me read.
In Ghana, it's not a crime. Let me say it's a crime. It's actually a civil wrong. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether I said that. If I said that your audience should forgive
They
me
should
for that.
forgive
It's
you.
not a crime. It's actually a civil offense that can be taken on.
Okay, so someone says, Solo, I'm watching live and I'm proud of you. This is Kweku Daily Needs Burger. Is that your name? Your name is quite lengthy and it's quite lengthy. This person says, impeachment can also make a president not to complete his term. So don't limit bulldog statements to mean something else. Well, that is your opinion and you are obviously entitled to it. Shout out to my boss, Mr. Adongo. I decided to stay home today just to see you on TV. Continue paving the way for others to follow. That is from Maestro. Please, the other name. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And my producer is telling me that Fela Makafui is watching it live from her office with her staff inside East Legon. Good afternoon to you, precious Fela Makafui, and your staff members. We are greatly honored that you are making time to watch us this afternoon. Elijah says, great delivery, boss. Proud of you, boss. And Sylvester says, great. Sylvester then comes back to say, individual freedom of speech is subsumed in the freedom of the media. Okay, Wunzai, sorry if I got your name wrong. It says he's watching live from Roma. Margaret Ajenim Wan Cancer, course rep. She says, hello, Abna Bruni and my boss, Solomon. You guys are really educating us. Wonderful host, great show. I would want to take a quick breather. When I come back, I have a very interesting question that I want to ask my panelists. So please do stay with us.
Your career is a ladder that leads you all the way to the top. Practically, all your dreams and aspirations of getting into management or even becoming a successful entrepreneur are hinged on your career success. Today, universities and colleges are churning out yearly more and more graduates just like you, all of whom are going to compete in the same industries for the same jobs. This means more graduates stepping over each other for fewer jobs. The good news? The right education can make you more employable in a job market that is increasingly competitive. You can stand out amongst your peers with a Blue Crest education, an education that understands the needs and challenges of the job market and prepares you ahead through progressive and inclusive learning. Our students are given the creative freedom that encourages personal development and are offered on-field opportunities for professional growth. Acquiring a Blue Crest education means being guided to identify and pursue your interest in fashion, ICT, business and journalism, and using the skills acquired in the course of learning to prepare yourself for life. Don't be indifferent to your education. Your career depends on it. Enroll at Blue Crest College today. Visit www.bluecrest.edu.gh.
From the quick breather, I have a very interesting message here. This person says, every single word men shall speak, they shall give account to it. If a person is given a mandate under an agreeable law to lead a nation for a period of time, and by virtue of an opportunity on an aired platform, you proclaim that he will not finish his time of service, what should be interpreted more than this as a threat? Okay, anyways, that is the opinion, and you didn't bring your name as to who you are or where you are texting us from. Solomon, before we went on the breather, you made mention of certain things that people should be careful of. You made mention of morality. You made mention of things that we cannot say that denotes tribal war or certain. Can you talk about that a little bit for us before I go on to my very final question? Our time is almost up.
Yes. So what I meant by that remains that our constitution really is a conglomeration of history and our future aspirations. And so you would realize that because of the experiences that we have had in the past, that has largely influenced or informed the fourth Republican Constitution. And you realize that because of that experience we had in the past, which influenced this Constitution, it's been it's been the longest, stable Constitution or Republican, rule that we've had in this time. And so individuals must at every point in time, indeed the Constitution also depicts our moral setting as a people. You get it? And so when you are sitting on, let's say, a national television, it was morally expectant. You see, sometimes it doesn't have to be that the law binds you to do something. But sometimes you as a human being, it is expected of you that in exercising or in your actions, you consider the norms of the specific society. For instance, in my hometown, certain things are not captured in the Constitution as being unacceptable or maybe a wrongful act. But in my hometown, you don't do them mainly because the Constitution does not say that it is wrong.
They are customs.
Yes, those are customs.
Okay.
They are specific rules that pertain to a specific society.
Okay.
And so in our actions, we must consider that. And coming back again to Bulldog's issue, it was, and this is a personal opinion.
Okay.
I was expecting that, yes, in exercising or in expressing your disagreements and all of that, there must be the feature of that reverence and respect for the highest office of the land. And indeed, I keep saying we know, but
your learned colleague here knows. I have no idea what he's talking about.
So there are even cases in our law report. I think Amidu versus Kofor and MPP versus Rollins. It was tried law. It was established in those cases that the state of Ghana is personified in the President of the Republic of Ghana. Okay. So when you point to His Excellency Nana Addo, you are pointing to Ghana. Okay. And so at every point in time, we cannot subject the sacrosanct office of the land to that kind of, excuse me to say, reckless and irresponsible statement, if I should put it that way. So basically, that is what I meant by being observing the moral settings of our land and exercising sound judgment and discretion, the statements that we make.
Okay, let me read some messages. Somebody has sent me a very interesting message that some people have also sat on TV to say certain things that were also constitute something like this, but they were never arrested or they were never called to question. Why is that? Are we not equal before the law? I am not saying that someone is testing me that, and I will take the opinions on that and then we can leave here. Johnson Simoni says, this is Johnson. Shout out to my senior, Kwabna Bafo Jr., very educative. Maxwell Ade, good afternoon. He says, I'm watching in a very educative program. Alice Boatin says, big ups to you guys. And this person says, I'm really proud of you, Solomon. I knew you would be great in this profession since high school. Go higher, brother. I'm proud of you. Okay. I wanted to make a comment on that, but anyway. I salute the studio. I am a Brefo by tribe from Sauli Tunla. Okay. Okay, thank you. Please forgive me. In the Savannah region, and we the Brefos are still under slavery in the hands of the Gonjas. Meanwhile, it has clearly stated in the 1992 Constitution that any language or tribe in Ghana before the gaining of the Ghana independence have rights of citizenship. But the Gonjas said we the Brefos have no rights to have our own council of chiefs. Please, why? Hey. Okay, I think if my producer is hearing me, would have to put this down for another day. It's delightful and thoughtful watching you. Keep it up from Kofi Ben. So, councils, before we leave here, someone sent me a long message saying that we say we are all equal before the law, as in our 1992 constitution. But some people have sat on their various platforms to make statements that are considerably higher or more derogatory than bulldogs, but they have been left free. Some of them occupy certain high positions. So the person is asking, are we all not equal before the law, or the law, the right to speech works for some people and then it doesn't work for some people? But I want to take your take on that then.
It's very interesting, and this has been going on over and over. One particular thing I want to put across is, with regard to some of those things, especially the criminal nature of it, because the state will only intervene if it has criminal implication. And we've been talking about this, free speech, we have how they call it, traveled even in the arena of defamation and co. But then I just do not want to, I just don't want us to categorize what happened in the case of Bulldog.
I'm using him as an example because
I want you to call it, just put a caveat.
Okay.
Yeah, as an in the arena of defamation, because that law do not exist any longer after 2001, with the repeal of certain provisions of Act 29, and that is Section 112 to 119 or so. So, what his arrest could have triggered specific provisions of the Criminal Act. Yes. And coming back to what you just asked, it is very important, and sometimes we will say that perhaps they have not caught the eyes of the officers in charge to prosecute.
But we've all seen them.
Yeah,
we've all seen them.
You have seen it, but the officer in charge has not seen it. So such a person, okay, he can draw the attention of the officers in charge by lodging a formal complaint that these are the things that have been said on air by A or B, and these are the charges. I think you just report, and then the officers will do the needful to how they call it. If it is chargeable, they will indict such a person. But yes, we hear the only instances, the only people who can, how they call it, arrest and prosecute is the judges when it has to fall within their domain as contempt, which is allowed under Article 19, 12, and Section 10 of the Criminal Act. When it's contempt for them, you don't need to even report to them. When they take notice of it.
I think in 2012, the election petition said John and other people were fined for contempt of court. So
Samia Uku, Atubiga, and the rest. So with regard to that one, when they take notice of you, you will be called to appear before them to substantiate whatever you have said. But with regard to the general expressions or opinions within the public domain, yes, the security officers ought to have acted. But the question is,
they've not seen it.
Yes,
anyway, so Kwabena, our time is up. So quickly, let me take Solomon's opinion on that, and then we can leave here.
So right from the outset, let me diffuse this notion. The equality before the law has to be juxtaposed against equity. You get it?
Okay. You know, we are not doing equity here today.
Yes, I know. But it has to be measured carefully. You have to take a certain assiduous consideration of that proclamation of the law that equality, we are all equal before the law. Indeed, we are all equal before the law by that constitution, but you are aware of the indemnity and immunity clauses that are captured by the same constitution. And you are aware that as a member of parliament, it is difficult to get him to answer for certain questions. You are aware as a minister, it is difficult to get him or her to answer for certain things because of the same provisions that are, allowed by the very constitution. So what I'm saying in essence is that indeed, I have also made, observations of certain statements and comments that are quite unfortunate. And I always say that they are reckless and irresponsible, especially when they are coming from certain corteses that you expect they should know better.
The lawmakers and my time is up. They would beat me up here. I'm eating into somebody's time, so it's quite unfortunate. Probably would put it in the fridge or the microwave at some other time. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys at home too for choosing to watch. I know most of my classmates are watching. Good afternoon to you, or who have decided to watch us this afternoon. I hope that you have learned something this afternoon. I'm just telling you that where your right ends, that is exactly where somebody's right begins. So it will be very, very, very humiliating for you to be arrested or for you to be questioned because of something that you said or because of certain words that you uttered out. So as you go about your day, as you go about your week, month, the whole year, be very careful what you say, because your right to speech or your right to freedom of speech is another person's right to protect his sound mind, his emotions and everything. So be very careful out there. And please, COVID-19 is still with us. Please adhere to the protocols. Please, we need you alive, because if you are not there to watch me, I wouldn't have this show. Good afternoon to you, Precious Fela Makafu. Good afternoon to you, Richmond Amofasapon. And good afternoon to you, Erica, for my hair. Thank you guys for choosing to watch Youth Empowerment Television today. Goodbye.